everyone, and welcome to I Read Zone. And today, this is a new episode of Reading Aloud. Today, we are going to read about Heidi. It is one of the classic story of all time. Once upon a time, there was a little girl named Heidi who lived with her aunt in the Alps. This is the highest mountain in Switzerland. One day, Aunt Diti decided that Heidi would go and live with her grandfather, even higher in the mountains up past the village of Dorfli. Grandfather was known by all in those parts to be grumpy old man, and when Aunt Diti and Heidi arrived, he was not happy to learn of Aunt Diti's plan to have Heidi live with him. But Heidi was a cheerful girl who loved being in the mountains with her grandpa. So she didn't even notice that he was cranky and displeased. After a short while, grandfather began to enjoy Heidi's company. He saw that she was a smart and genuine little girl. The two grew very attached to each other. Heidi loved to help her grandfather, and she enjoyed the beautiful mountain scenery and fresh air. Heidi also made friends with a boy named Peter who lived nearby. He was the local goat herd and was very happy to have a new playmate. The new best friends spent lots of time together, playing with the goats, running through flowery meadows, and watching glorious sunsets. Then one day, Aunt Diti returned to grandfather's and announced that Heidi would be leaving. Aunt Diti had made arrangements for Heidi to live with the Seaman's family in the city of Frankfort. Heidi would go to school there and also be a companion to Clara, the Seaman's daughter. Grandfather had grown to care about Heidi very much and did not want her to leave. And Heidi, who dearly loved her grandfather and her life in the mountains, certainly didn't want to go. They were very sad to have to say goodbye. When Heidi arrived in Frankfurt, she was taken aback by the busy city at the Seaman's big dark house. But since it was her nature to make the best out of any situation, Heidi was pleased to meet the Seaman's, their governess, and their daughter Clara. And Clara, who was confined to a wheelchair because her legs didn't work, was thrilled to have Heidi live with her. Clara was lonely because it was hard for her to go outside and play with other children, but now she could play with Heidi. The two girls became great friends. Heidi kept Clara company and amused her with her fascination for city things, and Clara helped Heidi with her school lessons. But sometimes, Heidi was a little too wild for the Seaman's household, and the governess, Miss Rottenmeier, became very cross. She thought Heidi's idea of fun was reckless, and so she became very strict with her. Poor Heidi. She was not used to city life, let alone being indoors most of the time. She was used to running, skipping, and jumping around big open spaces on the mountain. And here she felt trapped. She became very sad and longed for her grandpa and her old life. As the time went by, the governess became harsher in her punishment, and Heidi became more and more homesick. Then, something unusual began happening at the Seaman's house. Miss Rottenmeier thought she was seeing a ghost at night time. But The governess soon realized that the figure she was seeing walking about the house at night was not a ghost, but instead it was Heidi. Heidi had become so unhappy that she was sleepwalking, so Miss Rottenmeier gently guided Heidi back to her bed and called Aunt Diti. Aunt Diti decided that it would be best for Heidi to be examined by the doctor. The doctor immediately noticed that Heidi was under a great deal of stress. He warned her aunt that Heidi could soon become very ill if she did not return to the mountains. And although Heidi loved Clara very much, she knew it was time for her to go back to her grandfather. Heidi was certain he missed her as much as he missed him. Aunt Diti packed Heidi's things and took her back to the mountains, where indeed grandfather had been pinning away for her. As Heidi approached grandfather's house, she breathed the fresh air and started feeling better. Her cheeks became rosier, her eyes began to sparkle, and felt full of energy again. When grandfather looked out his window, he couldn't believe his eyes. There was his little Heidi. Oh, what a beautiful day! Heidi settled right back to her mountain life, and now that she could read and write, she was able to exchange letters with Clara. Heidi wrote to her as often as she could, telling Clara that she wanted her to visit so she could meet Grandpa and Peter, play with the goats, see their green hills, blue skies, pretty flowers, and beautiful sunsets. Then one day, Heidi's wish came true. Miss Rottenmeier brought Clara to grandfather's. Miss Rottenmeier thought that since Heidi's health had improved so quickly, the mountain air might also help Clara. But in all the excitement of Clara's visit, Heidi spent less time than usual with Peter, who had been overjoyed to have Heidi's back. This hurt Peter's feelings and made him feel very jealous of Clara. Then one afternoon, when the girls were picnicking, Peter sneaked off with Clara's wheelchair and pushed it down a hill, where it landed at the bottom with a big crash and was completely destroyed. After the picnic, the girls invited Peter to go to the other side of the hill with them to watch the sunset. But when Clara's wheelchair was nowhere to be found, Heidi asked Peter if he had seen it. Peter wouldn't answer, and his face began to turn red. "Peter, did you do something to Clara's wheelchair?" Heidi asked. "Clara can't walk. She really needs her wheelchair to move around." Peter began to feel bad about what he had done and confused. "I destroyed the wheelchair because I was angry at you. You weren't spending any time with me." As the two friends tried to sort things out, they were interrupted by Clara's laughter. "Look at me!" she shouted gleefully. Clara was standing on her own. The mountain air, fresh goat's milk, and good company had made her stronger. Then, with Heidi and Peter's help, Clara took small steps to the other side of the hill, arriving just in time for them to see the sunset together. When they got back to the house, Miss Rottenmeier was visiting with grandfather. They could not believe their eyes when they saw Clara walking. "But where's Clara's wheelchair?" asked Miss Rottenmeier. "I broke it out of jealousy," said Peter, "and I'm very sorry." "I forgive you, Peter," said Clara. "You may have broken my wheelchair, but you also helped me learn how to walk." With that, Heidi, Peter, and Clara hugged, and grandfather declared Clara's recovery to be a miracle of the Alps and a true friendship. Miss Rottenmeier and the Sea Siemens were forever grateful and promised that grandfather Heidi and Peter would never want for anything ever again. The end. There you go. That's the story about Heidi. Hope you all enjoy. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share. Bye for now.